Hi, Ryan.
Hey guys,
Hello.
how you doing?
Good.
Doing
How you
well.
doing?
How's your day going so far?
That's good. I had a good night on call, and then I just took my son to the skate park. So it's a little chilly out, but still a nice day.
Sure is.
Skate park, like skateboarding
Yes,
or ice skating or roller. Okay.
he ice skates tonight. He skateboarded. He does actually. He's got a scooter, so he does that instead.
Nice.
I'm better with that than the skateboard. The skateboard, when I watch people with that, there's some serious wipeouts. I mean, you have to earn your stripes with that one for sure.
Yeah. As long as you wear a helmet.
Yeah, of course.
Knee pads. Got to protect those
Yep.
bony things.
Yeah.
And gloves.
I mean, I hate seeing kids get hurt. So I just, actually when I'm there a lot, I do see a lot of kids get hurt, and
yeah,
I'll approach them and say, "Hey, I'm a pediatrician. Are you okay?" And there's been a couple kids I'm like, "Hey, you need to go get your parents," because they took some pretty bad diggers.
Wow. Hey, ask does he know who Tony Hawk is?
Of course, man.
Is he a fan of Tony Hawk? Well, I'm going to be seeing Tony Hawk at some meetings I'm going to.
Is that right?
In a month. Yeah. So if he you'll just have to email me like his name, and I'll see if I can get his autograph or something.
That'd be cool. Yeah, that guy is legend.
He's like just a righteous dude. He's just like a nice guy, just a really thoughtful guy.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I used to skateboard back in the day.
Did you?
Yeah. I remember one time I was skating and I was in Boston. I used to do street skating all the time, just on the street, never, not in any park. And somewhere, the bottom of the Charles River is one of my skateboards, because I was going over the Harvard Bridge and I ditched it, and my skateboard went and it went right over into the Charles River. And I'm like, at least it'll float. But of course, like the wheels and the trucks, it's like it just went right to the bottom.
What a bummer.
So somewhere
that's a bad day, right?
That was a bad day.
Yeah, that's bad. I was all about rollerblading. I rollerbladed everywhere.
Really? Oh, nice.
Yeah, I loved it. I played hockey, so it was good training,
Yeah, so you play. So that's the thing too, because like I always sucked at ice skating, and then like I tried rollerblading and I sucked just as bad. So
I wasn't any good at it. Yeah, I played the game. I showed up. I had the stick and I went to practice. I wasn't any good at it though.
My dad played hockey, but he had me in basketball growing up. And then we watched the Mighty Ducks, like, I don't know, 3 months ago, and my son was enamored with it. So then we enrolled him in hockey, and he's 8. So I was like, oh, there's a lot of kids been skating for a while, right? But he loves it. He rollerblades every day in the cul-de-sac. The kids play hockey, and so we'll see where it goes. But he's having a blast with it, and it's a real cool sport. Like, I didn't really pay much attention to it because I was into basketball, but it's a fast-paced sport. I mean,
very fast.
That's amazing. I mean, you can't even see them score sometimes. The puck is moving so fast.
Yeah, it's really, really
crazy.
Quick.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, for those of you who may be watching this as a recording, this is the unscripted part of the Friday presentation / show. So we leave this in because we don't edit anything. And but we like to also talk about what is interesting in everyone's views. And I think it's obvious that I don't know who I'm pointing to, but this guy over here, look, what are all those paintings? Talk about your paintings.
Yeah.
Because you made those. You're not just a collector. You made those. You painted those.
Yeah, those are mine. There's some of the smaller ones my son does. So I have a son and daughter. They'll come down here periodically and paint as well, which is great.
Wow.
But yeah, most of those are mine. I have a lot more. There's only so much wall space in this room, or floor space. So I like to have at least some out just to provide some color. And then, you work on something, you want to be able to look at it. It's a shame when you have a painting and you put it in a box and then no one sees it. I mean, I look at art as like it's unfinished unless someone's looking at it.
It's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, the viewer kind of completes the piece because they can have their opinion, their thoughts, their views, their emotion, which might be some cases I don't like it, but other times maybe there's a question or it triggers something. And that to me is the cool thing about any kind of art.
Nice, nice.
How did you get started with painting?
So, I mean, I had an aunt who gave me like some oils when I was a kid, but I just kind of dabbled. And then, but I think I always liked art. And when I was in medical school, I was like, oh man, I'm going to have to, I know I'm going to spend a ton of time hitting the books, but I'm going to want to do something else. Anatomy seemed pretty cool. And I'm like, maybe if I can use I can paint or, you know, apply some of this to the canvas. And so I biked over to my grandma's house and was like, hey, would you mind coming to Michael's with me? And I can use your senior citizen discount. And I'd saved up like $500 mowing lawns. So I bought a ton of paints. My brother and I built an easel in my mom's basement. And then I just started painting, totally naive to like the art world. And my first painting, I entered it in, there was like a JAMA had like a med student kind of section, and they had a contest and I won it. And so I was like, oh, that wasn't too hard. I won this contest. But I was so naive. Then I started entering other contests, and the reality of like how it's a small circle, the art world. And I had a lot to learn, but it at least got me painting. And then I continued to paint through med school. And then I'll go through seasons where I just don't have any time, but it's something I really enjoy.
Very cool.
Nice. We've got two people attending. I see. Hello, Igor and Dick Dillon. I know that guy.
Oh boy, it's been a long time since I've talked to
Yeah.
Dick Dillon. I remember him.
How you doing, man? Well, you can't. He has no voice, but you can type in chat. We leave the chat open, and we're going to monitor the chat the whole time. There's no, you know, if you have any questions, please just ask them in chat to, you know, all panelists or all panelists and attendees. You know, we try to keep this as much of an open forum as possible. So, you know, don't hesitate to send chats to everyone on the call. But and hello, Adam. This is the pre-show before we actually kick things off. Now I know, Dr. McAdams, we're going to be talking about all, you know, your healthcare stuff, but where can people find out more about your art? Do you sell your art? Do you have an online gallery? Is there a way I can see these closer, because they look really interesting?
Yeah, you know, I haven't tried to push the selling of it too much. I've definitely given some art for fundraising purposes to organizations. And some of my art, if you just Google my name, or if you go to like our university website, there's links to a lot of the paintings, so you can get a better view of them. Because you're right, you want to look at it up close to get a sense of what's going on in the painting. My objective for probably, oh my goodness, over like maybe a decade has been to eventually have a website where my art or various artists' art could be purchased, and then the money that would be made from that could go directly on site, where you pick like a nonprofit. Like I love, you know, I do a lot of medical volunteer work in low resource settings. And so when I see kids who are orphans, like my heart just goes out to them. So I had this concept of like art for orphans, and thinking like, well, how could you use art as a way to help some of these kids, you know, pay for school, pay for medical services, food, things, basic stuff like that. So my bigger long-term goal is really to have a way that a viewer could go onto a website, see a painting, get the story behind it, and then that knowing their money would go directly to one of these sites. So I wouldn't make a profit, I would just cover costs. So that's the goal eventually, is to have enough art that it would allow for that.
Nice.
So, but right now, yeah, if you want to see some of it, I think probably the easiest thing is just to go ahead and Google it. Yeah.
Awesome.
I'll also paste a link to your research page if you don't mind.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, some background there.
And hello, Diane and Adam. Where's everybody from? If you feel like saying where you're from, in you know, send an email to all panelists and a chat to all panelists and attendees. I'm in Montreal.
I'm in Madison, Wisconsin.
Madison, Wisconsin.
I'm in Middleton with a called
It looks like you're in the Louvre in Paris, surrounded by art. It's like, what
I
galleries?
think the Louvre actually has their art now. They have a program where you can actually tour the Louvre virtually, which is pretty
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Adam says he's one of your neonatologists in Madison.
Yeah, and Adam's a big simulation guy, so he does a lot of work with point of care ultrasound, and he's one of my colleagues. So we're both real passionate about education. So Adam loves to teach, and so it's cool that he's on the call.
Nice.
Excellent. Welcome, Adam.
And we've got Dick Dillon's in St. Louis, Missouri. Muncie, Pennsylvania is where Diane is coming from. And hello, Carmelita. Gary.
Carmelita's from California. I think if that's Carmelita, my friend. She's
nice.
I actually got to take care of her son, who's now I think 21. So I was at his delivery, which is crazy. So we stayed in touch, and he's like this amazing young man. I think he's going to go into law school. He played college basketball. So it's been incredible. Like, that's one of the cool gifts as a pediatrician, when you can see, you see him as a baby, and then you see him grow and then turn into this incredible human being. So that's a big joy of my job.
Nice.
Someone says they're on the board of the NIATX Foundation, which is connected to the University of Wisconsin.
That's Dick Dillon, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And it's on the hour, but we're going to wait a couple minutes before we officially start, because we know how it takes them sometimes a couple minutes to jump into Zoom. But for all of those of you who are here, and if you've never been to one of these before, we always start a few minutes early, and then the recording, you can fast forward us just chatting, but if you do, you'll miss all the cool background to Dr. McAdams' story about all the artwork that he's painted that's in the background of his image. And again, during this session, we'll be monitoring the chat for any questions. And so please, if you have any questions or comments, feel free at any point in time to post them in the Zoom chat. But
I see Dr. Mary Carr joined us. Hi, Mary. Mary is actually helping us lead up the virtual standardized patient program. So Acadicus Assist is a program we're developing to have basically a system of standardized patients that we can bring in for various simulations. And when we were having a sort of a pre-roundtable check-in, Dr. McAdams, we were discussing a lot of ideas about how to use actors that are playing the role of family members or playing the role of patients. And so I haven't yet followed up with Mary on that, but I've got a lot of ideas to share with her, and definitely want to circle back with you and continue that conversation. There's so many possibilities for having live actors in these scenes, and maybe we could talk about that later.
Nice. And we have a comment from Todd saying, I'm running a one-on-one VR K-12 immersion classroom. I'm interested in the possibility of running your experiences with my students.
Excellent. Of course.
Very cool. Well, thank you, everybody who's coming in here. Hello, Patrick, Scott, Narman, Jen. Everybody's popping in. This is great.
If you haven't yet and you don't mind dropping into chat where you're joining us from, we like to see that.
Yeah.
Jen says she's joining from the Boston area, currently a nurse educator teaching maternal child health at the college level, and a longtime NICU nurse, very interested in the power of VR in the classroom.
Ooh, Todd's from Valencia, Venezuela. Nice. Very international crowd.
Patrick Peebles, he's a NICU fellow at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, CHOP.
Yeah, Patrick was one of our NICU hospitalists. His nickname, we call him the Rock, so he's pretty legendary around here. But he's a
Rock.
budding neonatologist. So
the Rock at CHOP.
Yeah,
the Rock at CHOP. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Nice. All right. Well, I'm gonna start kicking things off here officially. And again, remember, everything here is being recorded, so you'll be able to watch that recording. The recordings are always posted on the same page that you were on when you signed up for this. So on the Acadicus the Acadicus website, the Roundtable VR page is where we announce all of the new roundtables, and we always have recordings posted there as well. And there's also a newsletter you can sign up for if you want to be notified about things going on with the Acadicus, as well as these future roundtables, because we do have these every other week. More people from Madison, Wisconsin, Atlanta, Georgia. Gary practiced neonatology 40 years. Wow. Nice, nice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kick things off with just a few slides and just a few setting the stage here too. This is a roundtable, and we keep it as open as possible. We also, it's Friday. We want to have some fun, and so what we're going to be doing is, after talking a little bit and introducing Dr. McAdams and talking through a couple slides, just a few, what we'll be doing is I'll actually be jumping into VR live, and I'll be putting on the headset. I have it right over here, and jumping in. And John will be logging in to Acadicus in non-VR mode, where he'll be then sharing his screen, and he'll basically be like the cameraman. But my audio will still be connected to Zoom, so I'll be able to hear and talk to people on Zoom. So that gives you we'll be walking through some of the environments that Dr. McAdams has designed inside Acadicus, because it's Friday and we like to do this all live without a net. And it's live. It's not a video. We're not going to have you sit back and watch a video and we're going to click play and then go get a cup of coffee. We're going to do this all live. So you get a firsthand experience of how this all can work. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen here and just set the stage. And if this is your first time at a roundtable, welcome. And if this is your more than first time, thank you for coming back. We do these every other Friday. And, we're Acadicus, and the Acadicus platform by Arch Virtual is a virtual simulation platform. And it's all about providing tools and content for creating immersive learning experiences. And these environments are very realistic. Here's an image of a scene, and you can see that the level of detail is very high. In fact, if you look at this anesthesia machine over here, this is actually, we worked with GE and using their CAD files to create something that looks as realistic as the real thing. And so one of our goals is always the highest level of realism and fidelity. So even things like shadows and spatialized sound and all of that is part of this experience. But the powerful thing about this is that it's not just an environment full of amazingly realistic stuff, it's full of people as well. This is a multi-user platform. Acadicus is an environment in which you can have people logged in at the same time in VR mode as well as non-VR mode, and you can see each other, communicate with each other using voice, and it's a shared multi-user experience. And when you're in this environment, you will see three types of entities in the space. And this slide here shows all the way on the left here, when you log in non-VR mode, that means you're logging in using the Acadicus software with no additional hardware whatsoever. You're just downloading Acadicus and running it on your desktop. Just you and your monitor and your mouse. And this is how you appear in the environment. This circle here is just a placeholder to put an image, like your avatar on Twitter or something. And in this case, the student doesn't have an image. But as they move around in the environment, you see them positionally where they are in the 3D environment. You can see where they're looking, because this little, when you're in non-VR mode, your sort of avatar's face here indicates where you're looking. So you have a sense of where the person is looking, and they also have the ability to communicate using voice. But at the same time in this environment, you can see John here. He is a live user logged in VR mode. And when someone is in VR mode, you see their head and you see their hands, because the head is being tracked in 3D, and the hands and the finger movements and everything like that. The last thing that you'll see here is sometimes you see you can see recordings of users who are in VR mode. Now, this is really a mind-blowing feature, I think, for augmenting how instructors can use this platform. You can log into this environment in VR mode and basically click one button, and it will record everything that you do and say, and all of your movements and any interactions you have with objects. And then when you press stop, and then when you press play again, the recording plays back. So this is a way for instructors to record themselves doing different procedures and have students come in and play the recording back whenever they want. It's like in Star Trek, going into the holodeck and then play back the recording of Captain Picard teaching this class. and you actually see the person in VR. You see their representation in VR in real time. And these recordings can be embedded in buttons, so students could walk in. You can almost see it on the slide here. There's a little button here. Click play for Dr. Slayman to give you a presentation on how to place leads on a patient's chest. And the key thing to remember too is everyone can interact with each other. The people in VR mode can interact with the environment using their hands, and they're manipulating things with their fingers. And the students can interact with things by clicking on them with their mouse. So you may not have hands and arms as a student, but you do have agency and the ability to interact with your environment. And so today, when I'm logging in VR mode, you will be seeing me like this, and John will be logging in non-VR mode, and you will be seeing his screen, which will be the world through his eyes in a live VR space. But today, we're very excited to have Dr. McAdams talking with us. And a little background on Dr. McAdams. First of all, the title of our presentation and our discussion today will be The Future of Neonatology Simulation-Based Education. Dr. McAdams is a neonatologist in Madison, Wisconsin, an associate professor and division chief for the University of Wisconsin Department of Pediatrics, Division of Neonatology and Newborn Nursery. You need an acronym for that, but the acronym would be long too. He's also a faculty member in the Division of Global Pediatrics. And his goals are really around providing high quality care to mother and baby, as well as education and training. And so what we're going to be focusing on today are talking about his work involving virtual reality, involving giving people remote access to in-person environments, and immersing people in hospital settings that mimic reality. And that's really the cornerstone of all of this. Here's the cast of characters, and I'll let John. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm John Brouchoud, founder and CEO of Arch Virtual, and we are the developers of the Acadicus platform.
Cool. And I'm also John, but I'm John Lester. I'm the guy who's bald with glasses, who has the beard, and whose John is spelled with the letter H. I also go by the nickname Pathfinder, which I've used for many years in virtual environments and online spaces. Dr. McAdams, did you want to say anything else introducing yourself before we move on?
No, you got it good. I mean, I just usually tell people I'm a baby doctor. That way it keeps it simple. So
baby doctor. Okay, that's good. I like that. But enough about us. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull up a short survey just so that, who are we? Who's everyone on the call? And I'm going to stop sharing my screen here for a moment. And what you're going to see popping up on your screen is a poll. And it's just it's a few simple questions, except for the last one, which is really a question. I'll launch it instead of just talking about it. The last question is asking you, what do you think is missing in current simulation training, plastic model approaches? And feel free to paste your, type an answer into chat whenever, but please answer the initial questions, which are just, click one of these to get a sense of, so we get a sense of who's on the call. We always have different types of folks showing up to these events. And it doesn't matter if you're new to this or if you're an old hand at it, this is all part of a journey. We're all figuring out how all of this works out. And while people are answering that poll, I'll just let you know that all of these slides that I'm showing you are going to be available online. And I'm going to post the link here in chat right now, but they will be available if you go to the Acadicus Roundtable page. And let me put that here as well. This is the, if you remember just one URL, just remember this one URL that I'm posting right now. That's where the recording will be. That's where you can sign up to learn more about future roundtables. That's where you can also learn about our, we have office hours when we're not doing roundtables on Fridays. We have open office hours for people to come in and speak with us. And we have those in our Discord platform. So if you join our Discord server and you jump into our office hour live stream, John and myself will be there to answer any questions you have and talk about anything that you'd like. Okay, so let's see. We've got people starting to answer questions, and let's see here. Dr. Adams, do you have anything else you'd like to say while people are answering the poll in terms of you know, the journey of learning how to use VR in different
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really grow up a gamer. Unfortunately, maybe good or bad, my parents didn't, you know, we didn't have the system in the house. I'd sit at my friend's house all day waiting to play the game, right? And so I didn't grow up playing games. And so, but I, as an educator and a teacher, you know, paying attention to, I think, technology and what's going on in society, there's a lot of gaps in the way we teach and the effectiveness of it. So when I became more aware of VR and what its capabilities were, I thought it was a unique approach, a contemporary approach that could maybe bridge a gap that would allow for improved learning and really like memorable learning. So the immersiveness of it, I think, how do you lock in that into memory? And I figured these experiences might do that. You know, in traditional training where we do like a plastic mannequin and we do a neonatal resuscitation program, if I try and think about the courses I've taken, I have a hard time remembering any of those courses, like the people, the surrounding. But if I think of like a ride that I did at Disney World, like I can remember parts of it, or I can remember a movie. I can absolutely remember like real live resuscitations I was at. And so when I did VR, I would remember it, and it affected me in a very different way. And so, you know, when I reached out to John, one of the things I was excited about was his passion towards education and teaching. And it was this recognition of like, this approach might allow the learning you're doing in that environment to be more memorable. And then in a real life situation, things come back to you or they become more natural versus I think some of the traditional training doesn't always do that. And so I'm not saying this is a one size fits all, but it is a unique way to try and address some of the current educational gaps.
Nice, nice. Well, I'm going to close the polling here and I'll share the results with everyone on your screen. You should see it pop up. Number one, probably about even, you know, almost even in terms of, is your leadership involved? Half of you, yes, half of you, no. It used to be often very few people would have their leadership involved in this. And it's in our experience, we've noticed it's very critical to have people helping you, excuse me, you know, helping you get adoption at the highest level as possible. So that's good to see that number keeps creeping up. 45% of you had no experience. That's fine. That's good. We're all learning. People have, and 27% have a headset and are experimenting, and the same 27% have headsets using them in a program. It's like most of you have the Oculus Quest. The Acadicus works with the Oculus Quest, but you do need to use the link cable. Although now they're doing the wireless.
Yeah, there's a new Oculus Air, I think they call it. Yeah, you can do it wireless.
Yeah. With Acadicus, you cannot do everything on the Quest by itself. You do need some kind of connection to a computer because remember when I said we strive for realism as much as possible, and the Quest does not have the graphics horsepower to render things at as high level as we need it to be for our simulations. All that said, it's always getting faster. The portable devices are getting more powerful every day. So, but we do support the Quest as long as you have a connection to either wirelessly or with a wire to a PC.
And for those of you with a Vive, our next update is going to be expanding support to Vive. So definitely that, and Valve Index and Reverb G2. So we'll be able to you'll be able to use Acadicus with that Vive then.
Nice. And we have most of you do not have dedicated physical space for VR training. That's common. It's a challenge for most people. And it looks like you've got faculty. You've got a great mix of faculty, administration, sim techs, IT support, and students. That's fantastic to see everyone represented. Basically, everyone is represented here. And I think that's critical because it's no one of these categories will bring it home, right? You know, if it's just a sim tech or just an IT person or just an administrator or just students who want it or just faculty, it really is a collaborative effort to figure out how to implement something like this and use it in the best way possible to support and augment the educational experience. Before we move on, any other comments? John, Dr. Adams, you want to make about who we are? Our poll results here. All good? All right. I will stop sharing the results here too. Let's see. And yeah, please, if you would like to answer that last question in the chat at any point in time, type something in the chat, and we'll bring it up. Now, the last slides I will show are some slides that they kind of blew my mind when I saw them for the first time. Let's see here. Tell us what we're looking at here, because this is mind blowing. This
slide. This is kind of apocalyptic. The ceiling got blown off by a virtual tornado. So, when I approached John, one of the things I thought was really important was to try and really have the right detail. I think one of the challenges with current sim is it's very evident you have a plastic baby in front of you, and sometimes people, I think, get stuck on what's not real. The mind is like very aware of that and doesn't allow them then to kind of like move on and really absorb the learning experience. And so what we wanted to do with VR was have that environment, when you look around, look very real. And so what this is like we tore the ceiling off, if you will, view, a 360 view of the actual delivery room at one of our hospitals, where this is the operating room where a mom would come in for a C-section. That could be a crash C-section or a planned one. There's a warmer there in the corner, but then we also have a whole bay on the outside that we'll show later.
And there's another, yeah, tell me whenever to click through the slides,
yeah,
Dr. McAdams.
This is just, we stepped out of that room, and what you're seeing is there's some radiant warmers that are set up. And this is like, if you go in our hospital down to the 4th floor, this is literally what it looks like. And so we had this device, it could really capture the whole environment, and then we can mimic that in a virtual, we can make that environment virtually. And so it's trying to really capture what's real and have it mimicked in high definition in a virtual environment to allow someone to actually, their brain thinks it's real. It's kind of like if you've done VR sometimes and you're afraid of heights or something, some of the scenarios you'll be in where you're up on a building or a mountain, you literally are like trying to grab for the wall because you think you're going to fall. And so your mind has been, I guess, tricked or convinced. And so that's important in order to kind of, I think, that memory piece I was talking about, I feel like that allows for better learning, and then it doesn't feel as artificial.
And how was this picture taken? Like, how did this get put together, this image?
Yeah, I think John, didn't we use the Matterhorn or for the
Matterport? Yeah. So we brought the Matterport in, and we did a scan of all of those two spaces. They're actually adjacent to each other, but we did them as separate scans. And then this is actually an axonometric view from the Matterport app. Okay. This was a little while back too, so the resolution is still pretty low. And what we can do with this is, like, the first iterations of the project we were developing were in a very kind of empty environment, and it's always so much that we gain from the subject matter expertise that Dr. McAdams is bringing. And his first comment was, there's actually a lot of stuff like on the walls, and there's details that are missing here. And so the scan really enabled our team to go in and make that much more realistic. So here you're seeing a comparison. The photo on the left of taken from that scan, and then on the right is the actual virtual reality environment. So we get a lot more of that detail in the virtual environment based on that. And then we can even use it for like architectural proportion and scale. Like, we're not actually taking that 3D model and then just using that in VR, because we want to be able to move things around. We want a flexible environment. If you want to move that ultrasound machine, you can just pick it up and move it. You can't do that with a scan. Like a 3D scan, everything is kind of baked into the mesh of the scan. So we recreate it. Our team is very good at translating that. I think, coming from our architectural background, they're very good at building architectural environments. And you can see even like the little ceiling divot detail, is like there in the column, little bumpers on the corners of the column, like every little detail is in there. So it's very, very close to true to life.
That's amazing. I'll post the link to, if you're not familiar with the Matterport technology for taking 3D scans of environments, the hardware and the cameras that you use. I just posted the link in, it's just matterport.com for those of you watching the video. Yeah, that's pretty mind blowing. And it's like having enough chaos, right? I mean, in the environment, like just the sort of, I mean, there's clutter. That's the thing, right?
I mean, if it's too clean or too sterile, that almost catches your, makes your brain think it's not real. Now, there are some environments in our world like that, but most aren't. Like if you walk into someone's house, it's usually not perfect. There's a blanket on the floor, dishes on, it's having some of that like on the wall. And then we'll get to this later, there has to be noise because it's not a quiet environment. Now, when John and I go down there, let's say we went down there at night and there's not a delivery. Yeah, it's quiet. But in a delivery, it's, you can have 30 people running around. And so there's tons of conversations going on, lots of noise. That's background, alarms going off. If you don't have that built in either, there's something missing. So you have to have, the question is, what's that threshold? Like you need to have enough of that, I think, for your mind to say like, okay, this feels like the real thing. And if you don't, then you're focused on like what's not there almost.
And it's interesting because, most people, when they think of VR, they think of learning procedures in a simulation. But what you're talking about is more about simulating life, and you're doing a procedure in a life situation. It's a life simulation with all of the attending noise and distractions and concurrent stuff happening.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, I've been working on a project with one of our pediatric residents. We'd worked on this project for like 2.5 years. It was a haptic intubation project. So haptics, so you actually, the feel, the touch is there, which is like the next frontier in my mind with VR, but it's not there yet. And so that technology, we're a ways away from that. And so some of these procedures, some of them I think work well in VR, but to me, that wasn't the strength at this moment of VR. I think more of it is a sequence of things. And so with education, with a lot of what we do, there's algorithms or there's a process you're supposed to follow to do something right. And so one of the things John and I talked about was let's create a platform that's really versatile. It's something that we do a lot. So we focused on, with resuscitation, there's this technique called Mr. Soap of. It's how do you breathe for the baby properly if the baby's not breathing well. So you can adjust the mask, you can reposition the airway, you can suction the mouth, you can open the airway, you can increase the pressure, or you can do an alternative airway. And so for a learner, just kind of walking through that, the focus isn't so much on like, oh, I want to make sure the everything feels right in my hands. It's more so like, do you know the process? Why are you doing that? And with each step, there can be some auditory, visual cues, but there can be, like, as an instructor, opportunity for feedback or dialogue. And, this, and maybe we'll get into this later, but so much of what VR could do would be to touch on conversations or more dialogue within medicine. How do you counsel someone, or how do you counsel a grieving parent whose child's dying? How do you do a prenatal consult for a family who just found out their baby has a heart defect that's going to require multiple surgeries? So much of these issues that we could do in a virtual environment, where in real life, the way that works, there's this concept in medicine of like, see one, do one, teach one. And it's an oversimplified, approach to like where I would watch someone intubate a baby, put a breathing tube in a struggling baby, which can be a life-saving complex procedure. And then next time I'm up, it's like, all right, I'm ready to do it. It's my turn. And then I would teach it. And to simplify like that, to me, is really assumes a lot. And the reality is, with intubation, you need to do about 80 to 100 of them before you get good, before you master it. And I kind of look at it like, if I'm learning how to play the piano and I'm a new learner, and there's an expert who's teaching me, and I watch them do Mozart's Concerto number 27, and then I'm supposed to play it in front of an audience and then teach someone. It's like, well, that would be ridiculous. I wouldn't be able to do it. I'd make mistakes. But in medicine, we kind of do that, like, here, go have this difficult conversation with his family because you watched me do it once. And there's so much nuance and detail around that and so much complexity that I think virtually you can practice in that environment without the risk of actually harming a human being, like with a procedure or with a conversation that went really bad, that you would say, whoa, like, let's coach you through that. Let's do that differently. And like when you talked about having an actor on the other end in a virtual environment, maybe that's an actor who's had real life experience with something that could say, hey, I did lose a child. And let me give you some advice on this, and then help the learner so that in real life, when they actually have to do it, they're more comfortable and it goes better.
We had a question from Dr. Mary Carr asking in the Q&A section. Yes, the actual rooms in the hospitals were scanned. Yeah, using the Matterport camera. So it was an actual photograph. Do you want to talk a little bit more about what we're looking at here, Dr. McAdams? This slide here.
So what we wanted to do is we created this a baby who was a preterm baby. So this would be a baby close to around 30 weeks gestation potentially. We didn't want to do too extreme, and we also didn't want to necessarily do a term baby because we wanted a baby that would be a common baby that would need some help with breathing at the time of delivery. And so we have a baby, and this baby, the head can move, the vocal cords move, the baby can breathe. We spent a lot of time on the design of it to get the body to look right. We did put a diaper on the baby just to kind of eliminate the need for, having to do genitalia or anything like that. So it made it simple. But this is just the resuscitation bed where we resuscitate babies, and there's some equipment that's on the wall, and there's equipment on the tray, and there's some on the bed. And then there's two avatars who are, one's near the airway and one's on the side. And so this is a baby that you would come upon if you got paged to the delivery. The setting would be the baby was already born and on the table. You come in and you're going to hear the baby grunting or having difficulty with breathing. So as a learner, you need to recognize, oh, this baby's in some distress. And you could get some information. You can ask someone and say, hey, what's going on? And they could give you some of the story. And then you'd want to walk through, how are you going to address this baby's airway to help them to breathe better? How do you troubleshoot that? Do you do the steps that we are hoping you're going to do? And if not, let's talk about that. We can learn from that. And then we can, as the instructor, I can modify things to try and challenge the learner if I need to, or guide them.
I have another slide here of what it looks like.
I just wanted to give viewers like the sense of like, some of the babies we take care of they're really small. So, babies can.
There's a pen.
Yep. So there's a big pen. So if you've got a pen near you, the baby's not a whole lot longer than that. So some of these babies we take care of literally are like, they weigh as much as like a can of Coke. So they're under a pound.
Wow.
So it's tiny. And if you look on the right, those little feet fit right in the palm of the hand. And that hand is the size of the end of your finger. So sometimes the hand is about as big as your fingernail. So you can imagine the challenges sometimes of getting an IV in a baby that's small, or a breathing tube, and just how gently you have to handle them. Like you can see this baby's got, the one on the left on the blanket has some significant bruising on their right hand. The skin is extremely thin. It's very fragile. But these babies, if handled the right way and resuscitated the right way, they're very resilient. And despite, maybe coming out only a little over half through the pregnancy, survival has increased significantly in these babies, and outcomes as well. So these are the kids that are really challenging to resuscitate, and these are on the extreme end. Most babies are bigger than this. But this was just to kind of give the viewer a sense of like, why would you want to practice some things virtually? Well, because when you have to handle this baby in real life, there's a certain way to do it that's going to make a difference for how well they're going to do. And you want to be able to practice that.
Interesting. I'm going to go through the last of these slides. Remember, these slides are available to all of you. And these are mostly just reference slides for you, but I want to make sure that you're aware that, from if you have those slides, you can see a link to actually where you can actually download Acadicus for free and explore some of the demo simulations that we have available. And again, you can use it either in VR mode if you have a headset, or non-VR mode if you just want to use it with your desktop computer or laptop. And in terms of additional contact information, here is the website for Dr. McAdams, his research website, if you want to check that out. And then links here to the Acadicus VR Roundtable. Also a link to a page that will help you get started with Acadicus and download it for free and check it out. I'm going to stop this.
So John, John the birder, I was not Pathfinder. One of the things I was thinking about, you know, with owls, so relative to like the tiny baby that you just looked at, I guess the equivalent in the owl world would be the elf owl, right? Which is
the elf owl. Yeah, we were just talking about that with Frank Emanuel.
Yeah, weighs about 1.5 ounces. So that's kind of your, I guess, your equivalent. You know, you can take the great gray owl compared to that, and
that's right.
I'm getting ready to jump into the scene that you just saw, but I do want to make sure that, you know, if everyone has any questions, please ask them. But there are 2 questions in the queue. Jen Wallace asks, would the design of the scene change if the learners are doing professional training versus, you know, undergrad student learners, where everything in the environment is unfamiliar?
Yeah, I think, you know, one advantage of a virtual environment could be just to orientate someone to what things are going to look like. You know, in medicine, so many times in my career, you just get thrown in this new environment that you're clueless to. And it's like, you're just supposed to figure it out. And that can be, you know, we do it, but it's not a pleasant feeling. I think it also, we could make things much more user-friendly for anyone kind of in a new environment, and probably make things safer and a better experience if we were to potentially let them virtually step into it, walk them through it, like some of the equipment, some of the things, you know, if you're doing surgery, whatever that might be, where, and that the beauty of that is it's, you know, you could do it kind of anytime and anywhere. So I think some of these things could be tailored certainly to the learner, and that also might be who's instructing, you know, what they'd want to do, what are the capacities of the platform. I think I geared this more towards folks with a little bit more experience that would be attending resuscitations, but familiarizing them with some of this, I think VR has a lot of advantages.
Well, that said, I know, for example, the scene that I'm just going to be jumping into, it's malleable. So you can do things like change the ambient sound, make it, these environments can be tailored instantly to different types of learners. You know, there's too much chaos. Let's remove this clutter, click a button and it's gone. And we can even show you that in a moment. The last question, Rob was asking for soft skills. You would need more realistic avatars, different need for the critical thinking skills needed for resuscitation. Before you answer that, and before I put my headset on, I'd like to actually say that I think the real power is in having really good virtual standardized patients for teaching them soft socialization skills. If you have someone who is a good actor, they will make you believe they are really whoever they're portraying. And it's through voice, it's through mannerisms. You know, if the actor is either, you know, just driving, you know, if they're driving a simulation, I think, in my opinion, I think visual realism is much less important as having a human being who is a good professional virtual standardized patient playing the role. But that's just my
I would agree with that. And I think the other thing is that the avatars, the translucent avatars that you see are designed that way to really fall to the background. Like, we want your own avatar to fall away and not be a distraction. And we want you to focus on what you're there to learn about. So the realism we strive for is going to be in the equipment and in the patient or in the family members. And they're going to be like photorealistic, you know, very, like, to your point, Rob, very much more realistic. So if you're talking to the parent, and we'll see that when we go into the scene, maybe we'll just jump into VR because we can kind of show you what we're talking about. But the actual family members, those should be realistic people, and then they're being puppeteered through the simulation manager that we'll be showing you, so you can change their expressions. And there's more we need to do on that side of things, but really good point.
Yeah, and that's the goal is to, the nice thing with malleable virtual environments is you can say like, well, yeah, let's just make this, I want to fit my presence to fade into the background because the focus is on what's happening. It's not just on how I look as an avatar. You know, do I have a spiffy hat? It's like, no, what's important is the patient. What's important is the family member that you're talking to, and the environment. So all that said, I'm going to turn off my screen and I'm going to be putting on my headset and jumping into, let's just to confirm, John's room 9592. Right?
That's the one.
9592. All right. So I will see you on the other side.
See you in VR. Yeah.
VR.
Yeah, the avatar question is an eternal challenge with virtual worlds in general. You know, we spent a lot of time, you know, coming up through other virtual worlds and platforms. In previous iterations, you know, we had realistic, you know, more realistic avatars, but they still were, there's that uncanny valley, right? Where they sort of look real, but not right. And then the whole first 15 minutes of the meeting becomes about, you know, what the avatars look like instead of what you're there to learn. So that's where we started to just take pieces away from the avatar until there was just enough left. So you can tell what they're looking at, you can tell what they're doing, you can see who they are based on their profile photo, just like you'd use in LinkedIn or Twitter, but it's really about what they're doing, and then make the family members and the patients as real as possible. It's kind of the direction, but that's an evolving thing. You know, the avatars are able to get more and more realistic, and we're keeping an eye on that as we go. I'm actually going to share my screen and we'll go into Acadicus and meet John there.
You hear me okay?
Yeah.
I'm getting my headset on, getting my, making sure my dog is away so I don't step on my little puppy in my room.
Excellent.
I'm getting my headset on.
We're going to make a pit stop in the Acadicus Commons. So if you install Acadicus, if you have a compatible Windows PC and a or a VR headset, you can go into the Commons. This is a free environment that you can come into. There's tons of different scenes that you can go in and explore. We've got anatomy. We've got all kinds of different recordings you could see. And you're free to just kind of come in here and explore all the different environments that we have available. Some of them have 3D recordings that are created by instructors, so you can go through and follow along with those. Some of them are more self-directed. So a lot of the anatomy is all kind of self-directed experiences. So
I call it the IKEA of
that's right.
It's like going to IKEA. You see everything, all of the resources that are available to you in the public for free in the Commons, and it's all laid out in a way that you could pick different parts from. Okay. Check one, check two.
Here we are. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
And I can hear you. Excellent.
And I can see you. You can see me. And I can see you. I see you. All good. Thumbs up. So this is before we start anything, you know, imagine if you are if you're teaching a class or something, you know, imagine like I could be your students could all be logged in on a Zoom call, no special software or hardware or anything. And I could be, you know, the instructor in VR, and, you know, John could be, you know, a TA or something, and I could be speaking to the camera and showing different procedures, and at the same time communicating with everyone in the Zoom call the same way I'm talking with John and Dr. McAdams and hearing you all on the call. So it's a pretty powerful way of extending the reach of what you can use your virtual environment for. You know, not everyone has to have a headset, and not everyone even needs to be logged in using you know, software. They could just be watching a webinar that's much more interactive in any kind of scene whatsoever. So this is wild, because I saw the real world picture and now I'm in the virtual environment here. And tell me, what would you like to see? What would you like me to do? Because I'm your hands.
So we could check out the delivery room. Right now, there's still a little more work. We want to create just enough so that if the student kind of, or the learner peeks their head around the corner, they can actually see that the delivery has happened. And but now the real activity of the scene is actually happening out here in the in this bay. But you can see we have an area you can wash your hands, all the basins here all set up. So
the sinks are over here.
yeah.
We had the faucets you could turn them on at some point. It was kind of neat. You could actually like move your hands in front of the infrared detector and have the water go on. But you can have as much sort of seductive detail that makes you feel like it's real as you like.
And speaking to the ambient audio, again, like each step of the way, Dr. McAdams gave us great input in the one about, it's really quiet in here. Like it's actually not very quiet during a delivery. So we created these different ambient soundboards so we can turn up the volume on any one of these. And
I'm turning up the volume. Whoa. There's a lot going on now. I don't know how you guys can hear it, but this is, I'm just going to turn it all the way back down so it's just subtle. But you can see that it's a shared environment. Like I'm in real time just changing these different sounds, and we can both be interacting with the controls for the room at the same time.
We've got several different options for ambient sound, and then there's sort of like room tone audio. So these top ones are more just kind of room tone, and the bottom ones have more active sounds in those. So then we've got some other NPC characters. So we've got a nurse here. That was actually for the Open Our Ed project. We created that nurse, so I brought her in here, and of course the ultrasound and all the equipment and the patient.
Awesome. So let's see. Dr. McAdams, I'm not a neonatologist. I am not a neonatologist. Dr. McAdams, what should I do?
You better save that baby real quick. So
thank you. No pressure. It's and just so you know too that one of the big things about VR, and this is one thing that you're not getting through John's perspective, because you're seeing through his non-VR eyes, and he can't lean or move around in 3D space. He can change his camera view, but when you're in VR space, it feels so much more real, obviously, because it's not just 3D immersive, but because you can get you can get really close to things. You can see I am looking right at this baby's chest, and like the skin and the breath rate, the chest movement, everything is it's really mind-blowing. But
John, how close can we get to the baby from this 2D view?
Yeah, John and I were trying to get as close as we could earlier. This is about as close as we can get, unless, that's kind of about.
So why don't we do that? Can we put in some of the breathing noises and then some of the alarm noises to kind of make it more real?
Yeah, let's do that. So let's see. I will do that through my simulation manager. I'm going to open this up, and we're going to get this patient, and we can start to have troubled breathing.
Oh no! I hear crying, and I don't see what you see on John's screen. I just suddenly hear the baby.
Yeah, so that's grunting, actually. So that'd be the baby's keeping the vocal cords closed as the breath is going out in order to keep some of the air in the lungs. So when you hear this is you can see the way the chest is moving.
Yeah.
Noise. This is a real live baby who was grunting that we got a picture from.
Oh, now something started to beep. That's not good.
That's heart rate's low, and then we can play with the sat monitor as well, make that low. These can all be set to whatever values you want to alarm. But there's typically multiple alarms going off. That's starting to sound, and now if we throw in some ambient talking noise too, that would be...
It's getting really loud in here.
That's normal.
This is really distracting me. Okay, it's life. Thank you. How do I do the... I know I can touch the baby's head.
Yep. So the first thing you want to do is, so if the baby's having trouble, and let's say that this baby's already had the mouth suction, you might want to, you can take that mask that you have on the right side of the bed.
This mask here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Try and put that over the baby's mouth.
All right, there we go.
Yep, just like that. And then if you can reposition the head a little bit.
I don't know if I can do that with the mask.
I think if you touch the head, the jaw, and the head, you can tilt the head back.
Yeah, I think that part of it is still in development. We're still working on that.
Let me take the mask off, and
okay.
I'm getting really, just so you know, I'm getting really stressed out by all this crying and the beeping on the machine, and there's sounds. This is realistic though, but what I can do is listen to the breathing, right?
Yep, so you can put a stethoscope on the baby and listen if you wanted.
There, you should be able to hear breathing. Oh, good.
Mm-hmm.
He stopped crying. Okay. And if I wanted, I can take that off. I can also place actually leads on the chest so that we can actually
measure the heart rate. Yep. The heart rate's often difficult we often have to palpate the umbilical cord for that.
Did I get this right? Oh, I forgot. See, I screwed it up. You really don't want me as your doctor in here. See, I can be holding multiple things at the same time, too.
What are you doing,
Did I get that on there? Okay.
And then you can take that suction, the blue suction bulb that's on the left by the head. And you can suction the airway with that. So.
Okay. This.
And then, so these are the things you'd walk through is you'd have the mask on. We will have where you can reposition the airway.
Yeah.
And you can suction and open the mouth, and then if you need to, you can adjust the pressure. So if you look by the radiant warmer up towards there's two panels. One says
here
2%, which is 20.
Yeah.
So you can increase your oxygen percent if the baby's saturations are low.
Oh, okay. So I'll just do something ridiculous.
So, yeah, you could go to 30, 40, whatever that may be that you wanted. And then the PIP and the PEEP. So we need to fix, PEEP is actually two E's. That would be, the PEEP is the peak and expiratory pressure. And then the PIP is the peak inspiratory pressure. So when you have that mask on the baby, we can adjust those things. So typically with like the PEEP, we'll have it at around 5 to 8. And then the PIP, John, we have that closer to like 20. But so you can adjust your pressure to provide more airflow to try and expand the airways for the baby. So that'd be something we could do. And if none of that's working, then there's a laryngoscope blade, which you just picked up, right?
Yeah.
So that's an instrument that you use with your left hand only. Okay. And then that's something you could use to open the baby's mouth and sweep the tongue with that blade to visualize the airway. So you'd normally be standing at the head of the bed to do this.
Yeah, it'd be like over here.
Yep.
Yeah, and I can't. I think that it's still under development, but the baby's head will move back. Oh,
yep.
I'm just going to reload it, and then we'll be able to do that.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, there's just one little glitch where we've got to connect the two, but if we reload it, you should be able to go straight to the airway.
All right, cool. I'll do it now. This is good because all the mistakes that I made are just gone. Thank you. So if I go up to the baby, I can. Let's see.
Should be able to open its airway now.
No,
yes, that's part of it still in development.
Okay, that's all right.
Yeah. The other day we were doing it, you were able to rock the head back, tilt the head to open up the airway. And then when you intubate, you can actually see the vocal cords move, which is pretty cool. So that's
yeah, that's when you really get a sense of the, when you're in VR mode, I mean, you can get really, I can see inside his mouth, but his lips are closed. I'm so close that I could really get a,
So Pathfinder, take that blade again in your left hand.
Yeah.
Open up the mouth, and then there should be, like on your to the left of the baby, I believe there's an endotracheal tube above.
Yeah, it's over here, but I think
yeah, that's the part of it that I think we're still working on connecting. I'm gonna just load up one more scene we can try, and then maybe we'll get it to go. But I know we were working on that with the head tilt, connecting that in.
The goal is if they needed to put in an alternative airway, so that would be an endotracheal tube.
I'm going to turn off the
point of it is not the skills for having to do that. This isn't to train you. It's just to know that that's what would need to be done. But then it allows you to do that to kind of as the final step in order to establish an airway if needed.
Yeah,
that step, I'm afraid that's still. I do have I can share. I can share my screen just so that you can just see what that looks like. But this is from an earlier screenshot, so you just the vocal cords.
So the blade went in the mouth. They swung the tongue away, and you can see those two little white lines kind of below the tongue, and those are actually the vocal cords that are slightly open. And then you put in the breathing tube through those vocal cords essentially to establish the airway, and then we'd hook that up to ventilation equipment in order to breathe for the baby. So that's what we have to do sometimes. If these other techniques don't work, we actually have to go what we call intubate the baby. And that's actually a skill that takes quite a bit of practice. And on the smaller the baby, sometimes it can be quite challenging, but even on a big baby, this can be difficult depending on the way their airway is. And so, but that's a skill that we wouldn't necessarily focus on right now because that's the haptic component where you'd want to know the touch and the feel, but knowing what order and what to do and talking through that is something you could easily do in VR right now.
So it's really a lot of it's not so much the haptics of the procedure, but it's really the situational awareness, the understanding, even just recognizing even just what this equipment looks like and getting a sense of it.
Yeah, so
spatially.
Yep. So I could say like, okay, this baby's a 29 weeker. They weigh, 1,000 grams or 1,500 grams. What size endotracheal tube would you pick? How far would you put that in to the gums? And what size blade would you use? So there's a lot of, even though you're not learning how to do the procedure, you're learning like, okay, what piece of equipment do I need? What size do I need? How would I put that in? How would you measure that? And then I could say like, okay, how would you know that it was in? And you could walk me through confirming placement. And so there's, like we talked about before, so much of this is actually like the dialogue and the conversation around it. And I think when those alarms are on and it's noisy, it's good that you're a little stressed, because when you go to a real delivery and you need to help a baby breathe, even though I've done this a long time, you still get your own heart rate goes up because you need to help this baby. And if you don't do it, that can lead to a worse outcome for them, or in some situations, like if you don't get the intubation, they could die. So there's a lot on the line. And so being able to practice that and get comfortable with the sequence, in real time, that could translate into like at least a comfort level with that component of it.
I'm also just getting a real sense of like, look how small this little cuff is. Look at that. Yep. Compared to the size of my hand,
yep.
that is, that's just wild.
Yep.
You can put that on his right wrist.
Oh, okay.
There's a little spot
there.
Yeah,
there we
go. As soon as you got that on there, now you can see on the
there we go.
monitor, we've got the heart rate.
Put that on for us to see the heart rate and the pulse ox.
Yeah, so this suddenly popped up here, and if I remove it, it goes off. Right. So there are linkages between different procedures. Data.
When you're doing training, someone will say, "Well, what's the heart rate or what's the respiratory rate?" And
there we go.
They verbally want it, but like what you want them to do is like, well, you need to put that on in order to get that information. So it's prompting them.
Cool.
So what we did is, we picked a scenario that was very common. So this would be applicable to anyone really that would go to a resuscitation. Now, you could make these things much more nuanced depending on what your needs were, or if you had an expert that said, okay, I want to challenge this person, you could make this a more complicated scenario as well.
And speaking of simulating life situations, I think we've got some family member over here, right?
Yeah, after our last call, I brought in some family members. I know this is probably not the realistic scenario, but you could potentially have real other people in the scene so you can talk to family members.
You actually would often have those chairs. There's often the partner where the other parent is often, the way these things often pan out, these aren't often this like scheduled delivery. This is often an unexpected, you come in, it's like we need to deliver now. Some of these are urgent sections or crash sections. And so you get a bewildered parent who's often brought in, they have, they get on the head cover and a mask and a gown, if you will, and then they sit in that chair, and usually a nurse or someone will go up and I'll come up and talk to them and say, hey, and just, you're going to give them a little bit of information about what's going on. Then they're going to get led into the room where the C-section is often and be with the mom, or they're going to go up to the warmer then while we're resuscitating the baby. So the parent, someone needs to keep them informed and talk with them. So you want to simulate, you could imagine if you had a really good actor, the person could be stressed out or however they may be. Maybe they don't even speak English. So all these challenges you could have with like different scenarios that are very real, but that you want to go well. So have them go well in virtual reality so that when it is real, you have a good conversation, a delicate, important conversation, and communicate in a good way. So this is where we could, you could say, okay, we're going to sim this part. And you got an actor and the dad's stressed out and he's worried, or the baby's not doing well and he's worried. So how do you talk him through that? Or what if the baby dies? Like, how do you handle that? Like, you can imagine if you're a trainee and you've never experienced that, that could be really traumatic for the the health provider as well, not let alone the parent.
Mm. And these are just these guys are just, these models are just in idle animation, but you can have much. Oh, here we go. You could have the virtual standardized patient speaking through these avatars and triggering different animations so that it is very realistic.
And that guy kind of a zombie dance in the background.
Yeah, he's
yeah, these are like demo animations, but we can animate them to be doing anything or
So it's like it's like the same way you would in a physical simulation lab be controlling, a mannequin. You can go to the next level here and be controlling body language, controlling any kind of body language while speaking through one of these characters. And then again, if you have somebody who is a professional virtual standardized patient, who's a good actor, who can communicate emotionally, it really is, you believe it's real. It feels real.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm hoping we can do is, if you think about, this is just one piece of the story, right? So if you had the family who came in for prenatal counseling and you talk to them then, and then maybe you go do your pre-delivery consult, and then you have this scenario, and then you have the discussions afterwards, and then you have them go up to the NICU, and then you have tough discussions up there, or you have to, so this is, and then what about when they're discharged home, and they have follow-up? So you could imagine with medicine, if you kind of pop in at any time, there's all these opportunities to say, well, what would the learning experience be right now? And I think this is also a really great way to think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and some of the the biases and the problems we have within medicine. Why not address that in virtual world and help people get educated and trained and aware so that we do better in the real world? And so I think these are environments that are safer, where if you have the right actors who could say, like, okay, I come from a different background and I've had these life experiences and I don't trust the hospital and I'm going to play my role. And then, we'd have a scenario, and then how do we conduct ourselves in those environments, and what kind of opportunities are there for learning? And I think that's where virtual reality right now could be a really powerful tool to practice some of this stuff that is really important and absolutely affects a person's experience in the hospital.
Do you have any questions from the audience? I also noticed we're at the top of the hour.
Jen Wallace asked, do the scenarios branch? So do the patient responses and outcomes change depending on learner behaviors and actions? Great question. And that's one of the key differences between the way we're approaching this versus a lot of other platforms where the answers would be automated. There's some where there's like a branching logic tree where there's chat bubbles where you're clicking on, okay, the patient said this, now what do you say? And there's 3 options and you say that, and then, okay, they say this, and there's this sort of branching narrative. But what we're doing is we're treating this with live people, and that's something that we'll be having Dr. Mary Carr coming on a future roundtable talking about our standardized patient program, where these are real people. We don't have anybody playing them right now, but in a real scenario simulation, we could have a standardized patient logged in playing either one of these family members, and they would be talking to you live. So there's really no logic or AI driving it. It's not voice recognition. These are real people, so you can have extremely lifelike conversations with them.
Yeah, it's the real world is not a choose your adventure book. It's not turn to page 5, turn to page 6 if you say this. There's so much granularity, and I think I think people, you want to teach people to be able to adapt, and you want to be able to augment the instructors, right? You want to augment the power of people who are really good at portraying patients as standardized patients. You want to augment the power of instructors to be able to communicate in an environment with students, in a physical environment with students, and have them be free from the tyranny of geography, and at the same time give you malleable environments that can simulate the life continuum of a patient, as opposed to just a few series of procedures along the way. That's another thing too with these environments. There's, this is a whole this is not just a room. This is a whole environment. This is like the holodeck in Star Trek. This could be simulating a whole city block. You could maybe go out the door and then you're on the street. And maybe there's, you go to the patient's home. You visit the family members at home after they take the baby home, and there's an interaction there. And so you could imagine having these long, incredibly detailed and human focused scenarios that are chained together the same way our lives are chained together in terms of, as we move through it. We're not just a block of data that is having procedures done in different points in time. The procedures are important, but they're part of a continuum. And in an environment that's malleable, where you're augmenting both the instructors and giving students access to it from all around the world, that's in my mind, that's the magic. That's when the magic happens.
Yep, definitely. Patrick says, this is great, quite realistic for a grunting preterm baby and the interventions you have available. Dr. Carr said, thank you. Dr. McAdams makes the very important point that nothing prepares a practitioner how to converse such hard conversations. At the same time, the practitioner needs to learn how to go right to the next patient without a lot of time to debrief from the last one, especially if the patient dies.
Yeah, and I think you could sim that as well. I mean, I've had scenarios, they sound horrible, but like literally I broke rounds to go into a room where a baby was dying and pronounce the baby dead, comfort the family, spend time, and then jump right back into rounds, which just seems crazy. But that's the reality of the job, unfortunately. Or, I've been in a room where a baby died and then a brand new family is getting admitted to the NICU, so you have to go over and greet and welcome them. And these juxtapositions, they seem almost surreal, because it's like, well, gosh, wouldn't you want more time to kind of think about that and decompress or spend? And sometimes you don't have that, unfortunately. So I do think you can make that a simulation as well, where like you time limit it and you have to go on, and then you could review it and, talk about what were you frustrated about, or what, how could you have done that differently, or what would you do in that situation, and work through some of those things virtually that might help you real time.
Thanks. Well, I want to, you have any last thoughts, Dr. McAdams, before we officially?
No, I mean, hopefully, this gave folks some insight into what's possible. There's a lot more we can do, obviously, and getting some of the kinks out just takes time, but there's a lot of opportunity here. And I do feel like this is one of the new frontiers of medical training and education, and will continue to grow. So it's cool to be a part of it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And again, we will be posting the recording of this as well as the slides on the Acadicus VR Roundtable page. And if you would like to just chat with John and myself and have any questions, next Friday is the open office hours that we have on our Discord server. The details on how to get into that are in the slide deck that you have access to as well. And we'll post the recording of this up in probably in a couple days on the website. And I'm going to take off my headset.
We'll just say
thank you.
Any mothers listening, happy Mother's Day.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
Yes.
Did we plan this? I just realized, did we plan to have a neonatology thing the day before Mother's Day, or a couple days before Mother's Day?
We didn't, but
remember your mother. I just realized that. That's amazing. Yes, call your mother. It's a good reminder for me too. All right. Well, thank you everyone so much. Thank you, Dr. McAdams. Thank you, John. Thank you everyone who was attended, and hope to see you all again soon.
Yeah. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye-bye.